Hi, everybody. I'm Kori Miller, and I write simply scandalous mystery thrillers, and I'm a little tongue-tied today. Happened on the BackPorchWriter show, too. I don't know. I'm just like, I'm flummoxed. I don't know what the issue is. So welcome to Indie Author Hour, and this is my co-host.
I'm Hardy LaBelle, author of the Video Game Careers, series of career guides for aspiring game developers.
Yay!
Yay! Exciting stuff.
Okay. We have a few things to cover today, a few things to recap last week, a few things that I didn't bring up last week that I need to bring up this week. So I want to dive right in and start with my experiment of KDROI and KDPulse. I mentioned it last week. I ran some promos, and I don't remember if I mentioned them last week, but I ran a couple promos. Yeah.
Why don't you tell everybody exactly what those are, just to remind in case.
Right. Okay. So I ran promos, and I used KDROI to facilitate the promos because that's what you can do. So it's a Chrome extension, and you click on it. Like I'm on my Amazon page. I did it through just Amazon.com. You could go to your KDP dashboard thing and do it from there. I didn't. I did it from Amazon.com. And then you click on the little icon, and it pulls in the information from the book that you want to do the promo for. And it's pretty slick. The only thing you have to add is your email address, and then if you want to, your author bio. Otherwise, the stuff is pre-populated. And then if it's a free promo, you get more places that you can push it out to than if it's 99 cents or perma-free. And some of that will probably change. It's in flux and everything. This particular product, at the time that I bought it a week or so ago, was I think $47. And the reason I like it is because I'm not paying every single time I go to use the tool. So it's not like some out there where you pay $15 every single time you want to do one of these promos and push it out to all those free promo type sites or discount type sites. You don't have to do that. You pay one time, you get all kinds of updates, and then you just keep moving forward. So I did two. And I did one. This is the interesting and weird thing to me. I did one for Deadly Sins 3 at 99 cents. And I did one for, I believe it was Deadly Sins Complete at 99 cents. And so far, I think one of them ends today. But in any case, so far, no sales for either one of those. Okay, boo-hoo, I'm kind of sad about that. But here's what did happen. Here's what was interesting, okay? What was interesting is that DS1, as of today, has had 21 downloads. Wow. That's the first book. And that's the free book. And I was not promoting that book. And so that book suddenly got a whole lot of attention within that time period that I've been doing these promos, but that wasn't the one I was doing. It wasn't anything related to the promos I was doing, but 21 downloads. So that's why I'm like, well, I'm not sad about it because overall, big picture, it got people to look at my stuff. So I'm thrilled about that. And of course, that 21 downloads helps the ranking for DS1. So, I can't really cry about that.
Absolutely.
So that's cool. So I love the tool. I think it's really handy. It's so simple to use.
Remind our listeners, long-time listeners, of course, will know what DS1 is, but you should remind everyone that DS1 is
Deadly Sins 1. It's Deadly Sins 1. It's a Desiree Jackson mini-series because I write a series of short stories and collect them all together and put them out as DS1, DS2, DS3, and I do that in between writing novels. So the first novel, Hush, came out, and then I put out a series of short stories, and then I'm doing North Downing, and you get the idea. So that's what that is. And I shorten the name to DS1 because it's just easier for me,
of course,
to say that than say Deadly Sins 1 and 2 and Complete and 3 and but.
Of course.
So, but yes, that's what that's about. So then KDPulse, because these things are tied together so nicely. Okay, that's another Chrome extension, and I just click on the little icon, and it pulls in all of the data for all of my books that I have on Amazon, right? And so that was how I knew that I had 21 downloads. It was that easy. I just refreshed the page, went, oh, look at that. I'll be darned. 21 downloads for the book I wasn't promoting.
That's fantastic.
And that one was only $27. So already to me, I'm going, wow, both of these are, good investments. I'm really happy that I bought both of those two tools. I'm really into getting my writerly toolbox together and set. That's what I'm really focused on. That editor software, I still need to play with that. And I'm really looking at TweetJukebox, buying like the pro version for TweetJukebox. I don't know if you've done that or not. I'm still using the free version.
What's different in the pro version?
Okay, so they've changed a lot of things, they being TweetJukebox, about your access level. And so I kept getting these emails about, well, now I can't send out tweets whenever I want to send them, and I'm limited to like 5 tweets, and I'm limited to how many times I can send them in a day. And so it got really restrictive on the free plan, which was, making it less useful for me, quite frankly. So, which was probably their goal. I don't know. And pushing people to the paid version. The paid version, if you pay annually, it is for the pros like $9.99 or something like that for the pro. So basically $120 for the year, and you can have 3 linked accounts for that. So that means I could do BackPorchWriter on that, Kori Miller Writes, and then my Womanly Art one. It's Cover Counter Run on Twitter. So I can have 3 linked accounts. I can send. I don't have all of it memorized. You can send an enormous amount of tweets, but you can also schedule, I think, up to 50. I want to say 50. It might be more than that. I don't have it in front of me right now. It's on my other computer. But there are differences. And so what I'm trying to figure out right now, and I was comparing it to HootSuite. I use HootSuite for general looking at my Twitter stuff to make my life easier. And then I use @mention, and both of those are free. I mean, I'm using free versions of those. I use @mention so I know when someone is bringing me up. But you can do @mention, or you can do mentions, I should say, through TweetJukebox, from what I saw. So you would know whenever you're coming up in someone else's conversation. So that would make that cool. But HootSuite, I didn't see a way to, you can schedule tweets, obviously, and you can do bulk uploads of tweets with HootSuite, but I didn't see that you could do what you can do on Jukebox, where you can just have it recur over and over and over within a period of time.
Right.
And that's what I really want.
Yeah, it's interesting. You see my repeating tweets. I've set up Jukeboxes to tweet about Indie Author Hour, and it tweets out, my book, my bubbles, and stuff like that. But yeah, it takes a lot of kind of massaging and finagling to make it so that you're not exceeding the number that you're allowed to put out per day. The other thing that's interesting about it is that I don't know about you. I don't know how you use Twitter, but for me, I'll follow someone that looks interesting, and then I'll immediately scan their timeline. And if I kind of don't see an individual tweet or a retweet, or not a retweet, but an individual tweet or some kind of human activity after sort of 3 thumb flicks, 3 pages of stuff, I'll often unfollow them, because they look like retweet bots to me. They're not saying anything. They're not interacting with people.
They're not really engaging.
Right. And that's something that I'm just super sensitive to, even on my own timeline, is trying to go through my Twitter feed at least once every couple of days. And just, if I see something interesting, reach out to somebody and say, hey, that looks neat, or this is interesting, or, how's it going, or whatever. Because the thing about TweetJukebox and all those other services that are out there is that they can become terrific. They're terrific devices for broadcasting a message. But honestly, I think that people have a tendency to tune that out on Twitter. Or just ignore it. If it's not about the personal connection and the sort of the interaction on Twitter, I have a feeling that it's not getting a lot of traction, just the kind of auto repeats or echoing into empty space. So, I think that's, if TweetJukebox looks like it's going to do what you want it to do, I think that's great. I just would caution you to, if you pay money to get TweetJukebox to allow you to have a bunch of automated messages from a bunch of different automatic accounts, also be sure and tweet people individually.
Right. And I already do that.
Yeah.
So I already use it that way. Yeah. And because I spend about 15 minutes with social media per day, and that's it. I don't spend a lot of time. And that's my personal, I'm going to send my stuff out, and I engage with people 15 minutes and then I'm done. And I use all the other things for scheduling of, this is information I want you to see periodically, because I look at it like any major brand. What do? They've got their message in front of you constantly. And yeah, sometimes you overlook, sometimes you don't, because you're like, oh, that got my attention that time. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like this guy, Wesley, with the Kindle Spy thing. Mm-hmm. You were absolutely right. I get emails from this guy every day now, and I'll check some of them, and some I was like, yeah, no, I don't want that. Mm-hmm. But that's how I view the TweetJukebox and any of those services is, I need this information to get out there. For example, BackPorchWriter, I've been doing that 3 years, and it's on Blog Talk Radio, right? And I like Blog Talk Radio. However, my show is not getting out to the people that it needs to get out to, from what I can tell. And it's not getting the traction that I think it should have after 3 years of being on that platform. And so and they've recently changed all their metrics too. So I really need to focus on getting the word out about this show, because it's a fun show, people. It really is. I'm not lying. And I reformatted it just recently, and I changed the intro and the outgo and did all this stuff. So I'm looking at a way to get the shows put out there in front of people a little bit more, because otherwise, if I'm doing it, which is what I have been doing this manually, is I go to Google and I share it on Google, then I go to Facebook, and then I go to Twitter, and then so I'm constantly having to do that. I need a way to automate some of that. I cannot do that all the time. But that's something that doesn't have to be a personal message. It's a branding thing. It's a marketing, send this out sort of thing. But what I do with my other stuff is I'll go on Facebook, and I'm liking my Facebook newsfeed a lot more, by the way. It's so much better now.
Why?
I changed it a lot. Like a week or so ago, I got really I was done. I was like, I can't stand this, because so much was coming through my newsfeed that was super negative, and not just from people. I mean, there was just stuff coming through, and I was so tired of it. And I just immediately went, done. And so I only see like a handful of things from people. Mm-hmm. And then I get some of the, like I get my daily meditation thing, I get my mindful post, I get I get all this other stuff. And so I'm liking it a lot more.
Was that,
but I'll go on Facebook.
Did I recommend that to you, or did you just?
Yeah, you did a while ago when I was complaining about Facebook before, and I wasn't really doing it. And then I said, no, I can, there's a way for me to, I don't have to unfollow these people. I just don't have to see them in my newsfeed. And then
you don't have to unfriend them, just unfollow. Yeah.
I don't have to unfriend. I can just unfollow. Yeah. And then I don't have to see it. So that's
it's funny how much joy your Facebook feed can bring you once you spend, a half an hour just going through and saying, I don't need that in my life. I'm not going to unfriend that person. I'm just going to unfollow them. And yeah. And I don't mean to sound, too saccharine or kind of too naive, but if you cut out that chaff, there's fantastic content. I mean, enriching, interesting content all over the place, but it just gets, awesome. It can get drowned in the noise and all that stuff. So yeah, as a tip,
a lot of negativity.
Yeah, tip for all of our friends out there, just to repeat it, and thank you, Kori, for doing it yourself. Edit your Facebook feed. Go into the upper right-hand corner, hit that little tab, and if you're seeing a post from some source, just click unfollow. If you see something that really makes you mad or upset or sad or whatever, and you don't want it in your life, just click unfollow. You don't have to unfriend. You don't have to unlike. Just unfollow. And it will make your Facebook, it'll turn it into a positive, a force for good and not for evil.
So I tweet, okay, back to the tweet thing. Okay, yeah, we went off tangent a little bit, but I tweet from Facebook because I have a little Hootlet thing that goes to HootSuite, so I can tweet from Facebook. And I love to be able to do that. And that's how I share a lot of content, is I just go over to Facebook and go, boom, hey, check this out. Oh, this was funny. Or this, this was inside. I do things like that. And I've said on this show before, that's how you can know it came from me and not from my auto jukeboxes or anything else, is that I'm usually adding a comment or I'm giving my opinion about a certain thing, and then it's going out there. But that's how I do Facebook. And here's the weird thing. A week or so ago when I did this, I didn't have to go to every single page and unfollow the person. There was some mass way I could do it. And then yesterday or the day before, I was trying to do that again because something came up and I realized I needed to unfollow somebody that I missed. And so I couldn't find that same feature again. I actually had to do what you're saying, which is go to them and unfollow them. So I don't even know what I found before that helped me do this en masse, but it was awesome because it was just like click, 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 click.
Yeah, I'm sure there's, I mean, that's the thing that's so weird about Facebook's user interface, is that there's a lot of, in software, we call it cruft. It's sort of extra features or design ideas that have sort of fallen by the wayside over time, and they're just legacy. So every menu doesn't work exactly the same way. It doesn't always take you to the same place, or it doesn't, it's not super intuitive because the platform has expanded so much. So I'm not surprised that you kind of found yourself into a little backwater where it was like, oh, you can mass unfollow stuff, buried back in there. Yeah. But I'm sure if you dig around, you can find that kind of thing, But in any case, yeah, it does make Facebook. It changes it from a negative thing into a positive, and
yeah.
Anyway.
And it's not that. And the people that, here's the thing: my personal Facebook page, I'm not one of these people that I just friend everybody willy nilly. Not for my personal account. There's people I wanted to be connected to, and old schoolmates from whenever or whatever, that sort of thing. So don't friend every single person who sends me a request. I usually let them know that I don't do that, and then I redirect them and say, hey, go to my author page, go to BackPorchWriter, go to and just connect with me that way. Because on my personal page, I'm usually connecting with like my family and stuff, and so I keep that very tight who I'm connecting with that way. And everything's really restricted. Like I found out the other day, someone tried to friend me, and she sent me a message saying, how come I can't friend you? And I said, well, because I have a very restricted account. I just really have a very tight hand on my account right now. Right. If you're not positive and you're not upbeat, I don't want you to, be in my news feed. I'm sorry. I really just don't. I get so tired of seeing it. So that's what was going on. I have some lovely friends. I really do. They tend to really, how I'll give it to you this way. You know how when you buy a car and before you bought your car, you never really noticed all those cars, but the minute you buy your car, you see that car everywhere.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I have some friends who are kind of like that when it comes to negative news and certain topics in news. And so it was constantly coming across. And it's not that I don't want to be informed, but I don't need to see it 24 hours a day.
Of course, sure. No, it's not that you don't want to be informed. Of course you want to be informed. It's also, yeah, I mean, and there's so many topics out there that people can get mired into right now, politics and terrorism and blah, 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 blah. I mean, there's a million things, right? So.
And it's not that I'm going to deny it. I know this stuff's going on. I don't want to think about it all the time. It's so draining. Especially if you're an author. If you're a writer, that to me is just so draining and so depressing, and I can't live that way. So no, that poof gone.
So yeah. Well, there's a topic there, to sort of talk about. But can I rant for just a minute,
yes.
A minute or two here? Okay. Yes, so I happen to believe that social media is sort of the awakening of our human intelligence. Kind of on a social scale. It is as if up to this point, we've just been sort of like an infant society, and we've evolved technology and culture and all the rest of that type of stuff, but we did not have the ability to know things quickly, think about things, and react to things until really the advent, the major advent of social media. Which means that as a society, as a human society, I don't just mean America, but I mean, human society, our consciousness is sort of sparking to life now. We're kind of waking up and realizing we can become aware of things. But what we don't yet have the ability to do is distill social media into a conversation. We can scream things, we can react to things, but we cannot, as a society, sort of channel that into a productive, focused conversation. Instead, the screaming and the shouting is sort of it's like drinking out of a fire hose, it's just pouring onto you. And so the next generation of social media tools, in my opinion, as a software designer, is something that's going to take the fire hoses of information that are coming at us through all these forms of social media and allow us to find a way to, turn it into a conversation, focus it so that imagine if your Facebook feed every day, was kind of being presented to you. This is just my crazy eyes, but you've seen those word maps, they'll take a word map where there's a software tool that will take a conversation thread or a blog post or something, and it'll pull out the words that are the most commonly used, and they're the biggest ones.
Right.
So that would be the next generation of, whatever it's worth. I feel like the next generation of social media tool is something that will sort of take your Facebook feed and turn it into a, hey, Kori, this is what your Facebook feed said today. And you can +1, yes, outrage, yes, global warming, no, whatever, yes, that, no, that, or something like that. So that as a conversation, we can kind of, without having to jump into an individual thread and attack one individual person, there's a way for us to sort of know in gestalt, what is it that we're paying attention to and kind of how do we want to react to it without it having to turn into to what it does now, which is if you take the time to get into a conversation with one individual on social media, it can turn into this incredibly detailed, lengthy, and often very emotionally charged thread that doesn't convince either side. All it does is just fire both sides up even more. Doesn't change minds. So I don't know. Some way of parsing that information and kind of turning it into a, hey, I disagree with that, or I agree with that, or something. But anyway, I don't know. I don't know what form it takes, but I'm certain that is, social media 2.0 is something like that. Something that is less. And the other thing sorry, this is the real passionate topic with me. The other thing that's fascinating about electronic media, social media, is there is no emotional nuance to it whatsoever. And I'm sure you've seen this a million times, because I certainly have. Some person will send an email that will just set another person off. And it all depends on how you happen to read the 6 words in the email, or the 15 words in the tweet, or whatever it is. It just, it hits one person one way and another person another way, and it causes this reaction or that reaction. Even emojis don't, they don't convey any social nuance. They don't have the same ability to convey information that we have through our spoken voice and through gesture and through expression. And so as an emotionally dead medium, it's very suspect to me that we are relying on it for social discourse. If things that are said in jest or things that are said ironically do not read like they are said in jest, or they certainly don't come across as irony via email. They could, if they were said to your face, you could sort of understand the psychic component, but not. So that's social media 3.0. How do you convey, not just how do you simplify the fire hose, but then how do you also convey emotional nuance so that you can, sort of make les mots justes. You can add, your comment, and it also has the, desired emotional.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons why I like Blab as a platform, or anything that's similar to this, because there's that body language component that is missing from Twitter. It's missing from Facebook. It's missing from anything where you can't actually see the person or hear the person, because even if it were just audio, you'd be able to pick up on some of what that person means behind what they're actually saying. And so that's another way. I really enjoy Facebook overall, but no, there's too much of that drama, and I don't like drama. That's not my thing, and I don't want anything to do with drama. And tweet on Twitter, it's more like, well, I just can't. 140 characters, really. I just can't. I have to write more than that, and I never really connect with people on Twitter. I try, but I'm not getting a whole lot of conversations started with Twitter. That's just not really happening.
Well, unfortunately, Twitter's also suffered a kind of major meltdown over the past month or so. An awful lot of they basically instituted some sort of new council that's supposed to be judging whether or not people's Twitter feeds are abusive or disruptive, and they will come along and they'll edit or even close out those Twitter feeds.
I heard that.
Yeah, one of the things that's glorious about Twitter is, or there used to be anyway, was that you could see and hear any old thing. I mean, you could see crazy stuff, and there were people who were trying to be funny. There were people who were trying to be, sort of outrageous or provocative or whatever. And just see if I could find an article about that for you here. Anyway, but now it's they're trying to clean up the kind of Wild West brutality of it, the savageness of it, which is one of the things that kind of has always made Twitter a little bit like playing with fire. I'm sure you've seen Jimmy Kimmel's Mean Tweets segments. Have you seen those? Yeah, it gets genius, especially when some celebrity will read a tweet that really hurts their feelings. It's like, oh, that one really hurt that person's feelings, and you're like, yeah, well, they hurt everybody's feelings. We all hurt each other's feelings on Twitter. That's the way it goes. But anyway, but yeah, they're trying to clean that up, and it's, I don't know. I don't think personally that Twitter should be like Facebook. I don't think it should, because that's not how it is now. I don't know. Maybe if it was cleaned up and kind of made more antiseptic, it would be better. But then on the other hand, it's starting to turn into a huge collection of these sort of bots that are just screaming out into the universe, and there's no response. There's no call and response. Anyway, sorry. Social media is a cool thing, and I get pretty fired up about it. So I'll stop talking about that now, so we can talk about indie and author stuff.
That is indie and author stuff, though, because you have to decide what platforms you're going to use, because you can't do all of them as an author and actually get some writing done. So you have to pick the things and that's part of the discussion. Pick the things that you like and that you can work with. I like Facebook, which is why I didn't want to completely close my personal account. And so I was trying to make this work so that I could still use it for BackPorchWriter, Kori Miller Writes, T-Trove, all of that stuff. And so I was really, and I have some groups I'm involved with on Facebook that I like to be in their discussions. And so I really wanted to make this work. And so I like Facebook. Twitter has grown on me. I mean, as a medium to get information out there. And I would like to have a little bit more connection with people on Twitter, a little bit more dialogue. That'd be awesome. That doesn't seem to happen much. I get people retweeting my stuff. Thank you very much. I think that's cool. And I retweet people's stuff. I'd like a little bit more of a connection there. So that's how I look at that. And we all know what I think about Pinterest. I just can't get into it. And I've never done Instagram. I tried Periscope briefly.
I might take that as a challenge now, Kori. I'm going to get you hooked on Pinterest.
No one's been able to do it yet. And because the other thing is I don't want to do things that are time sucks, that I consider to be time sucks. I have to like it, and it has to be really useful to me from a business perspective. That's why Facebook's useful. I like Facebook because I know I can use it that way. I like Twitter because I know I can use it that way. Pinterest, I know it can be used that way. I just don't seem to get into it.
It's interesting. I don't use Pinterest that way for business purposes at all. I just have spent a long time building boards with topics that I think are interesting, just collections that I find fascinating. And I didn't really care if people were following me or not following me. I didn't really particularly care if anyone, it didn't matter to me. All I was doing it for was to sort of the Zen-like meditation of going through my Pinterest feed and just being like, ooh, I'd save that. And I like that. And whatever. But what I found is that, if you start to kind of collect images, and even in that way, you can find people that have similar tastes or like what it is that you're doing in terms of, your stuff, and follow you. I think I have I used to have, I haven't looked at Pinterest for a while because I've been too busy, but I used to have a lot of Pinterest followers.
I know I have some. I got more followers when I started posting things about self-defense, actually. So that did happen. And occasionally I do look at Pinterest. I mean, if I were going to pick up another social media platform, Pinterest would probably be the one I'd pick up. I am looking at Goodreads more because that's just sort of a no-brainer. It's for writers and readers. And so it kind of makes sense to be over there. I did start a BackPorchWriter. It's Indies BackPorchWriter on Goodreads. So there's an actual group over there now. So go check that out, everybody. Indies BackPorchWriter on Goodreads. It's interesting. I'm building the threads and the discussions all right now. So one of them over there is, of course, welcome and introduce yourself and tell us a little about what you do. And then there's one on mindset that I posted in the last couple days. I posted, I think, 2 things on mindset because I think that's important, especially if you're trying to be an author that makes any money off your writing. The mindset. But in any case, that's what I decided to do recently, was explore Goodreads a little bit more. And I will say this, the people who work with Goodreads, really helpful people, because I had Hush was in there 3 times for some reason. It was 3 different images of what? And so my reviews were all over the place, depending on where the person found the book. And so I contacted Goodreads and said, hey, is there any way to fix this? And a guy named Arturo got a hold of me, and he, poof, magic fixed. And all the reviews are in one spot now underneath Hush. And then they were working with, there's a compile function, and apparently they were doing some maintenance work, and so I couldn't do that myself, and that's why he was doing it. And then I went back in because the compile was working, and I was able to clean up some other stuff for my Goodreads. So now I actually have reviews that I didn't realize I had, because everything's where it's supposed to be. And so that, it's cool that way. So I'm kind of liking Goodreads now. So check out Indies BackPorchWriter, the group, and see what you think. Did you find the Pinterest thing that how many followers?
Oh yeah, I have 1,000 followers on Pinterest, and I just crossed 2,000 followers on Twitter. So,
yeah. See, I don't have that. See, and part of it is I'm just not, when it comes to things on to tweet about, I can't seem to come up with really clever things that get retweeted. I don't know why, but I can't. I haven't been able to do it yet. So I just try to tweet useful information. I stick to what I know, and I just tweet useful information. And occasionally I send out thank yous, because I like to do that. So I'll send out a thank you tweet to people. I mean, it's usually the image that's on my book, My Life in Black and White. The new image that I put on there is me as a teenager doing this sort of thing. And that's my image that I send out when I'm doing my thank yous to everybody. But
adorable.
And that gets retweeted. So that's kind of funny, because I'm willing to put myself out there as my 16-year-old self looking all goofy.
You know? I keep telling you, you're part of the show. You got to be out there, man.
Yeah, I'm an introvert, and I'm a little bit shy, so I try and work on those things.
And you're
get myself out.
You're a powerful author, businesswoman, and martial arts expert. Just to throw out a few other defining characteristics. And a mom, and a pet.
And I tend to keep myself. Okay, so we should bring up Goodreads again, because that Brain to Books CyberCon that I was planning to talk about last week, we didn't quite get to. So Brain to Books CyberCon, this is so cool. I found it just by playing around on Goodreads. I just happened upon it. And this woman, Angela Chrysler, is who is the mind behind it, the one that started it all. And this is the second year that she's doing it. And people, when she started it the first year, apparently some people really latched onto it and just took the reins and started to run. And so apparently it was really well attended last year. It's all a cyber event. And so she's doing it again this year. And I put the links already in the chat, so you can scroll back up and you can find the links for that. But you're looking for Brain to Books on Goodreads, and it's a cyber convention, 2016. It's April 8th, 9th, and 10th. There's a lot going on. If you're an author, you go to a different section than if you're going to the fairgrounds. That's for everybody else. But authors can set up virtual booths, and you can run giveaways and all kinds of things through your booth. Authors can participate in events. Now it's tied to Facebook, so you can participate in some events that are happening on Facebook. One is the Cover Wars. People are voting on that right now. So I don't think you'll be able to submit your covers for that yet or now, but you can go vote on covers, like mine. Just hint, hint, go vote for my covers on the Cover Wars. And then there's some takeover events. So one author is the focus, but other authors come in and take over an hour of time and do giveaways and talk about themselves. And so I'm doing 2 different takeover events, one associated with them and then another one that had already been going on called Helldat. And they're doing it on the same weekend. And so I'm doing 2 different takeover events. And then there's another person named Joe who is doing a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week type of coverage thing for this con. And he's doing interviews and streaming and all that, different interviews, because other people are doing interviews. There's blog hops, there's story hops, there's all this stuff going on. And it's a 3-day event, and you can come and go as you want. I'm going to be doing some live blab interviews right here under the BackPorchWriter moniker. So that'll happen the 8th, 9th, and 10th. I have authors already signed up for that. I'm getting more signed up every day for this. So that'll be fun to be able to do that. So that's kind of what's going on. And I'm really excited to see how it plays out. I think it'll be so much fun. She was on the show last week on BackPorchWriter. She came at the last minute to the show, and we ended up talking the whole time. And that show has so far 100 downloads. Wow. So apparently people are paying attention to that show. So check it out.
I will. I'll absolutely dig into that today. I didn't really internalize what it was last week when you were talking about it, but I clearly need to be over there. I want to put my cover into Cover Wars. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I don't know if you can put it in now. I don't know if it's too late or not. But she'll do it again next year. So I mean that was the other thing. I'm looking for things that really are dynamic and happen on an annual basis so that I can keep getting involved with other authors who are, like me. They are entrepreneurs. They are about the business. They're not just here as a hobby. This is what they want to do. Mm-hmm. And so they're moving in the same direction that I'm moving. That's one of the things that I like. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I'm hoping this comes out. This is really good. There's another Goodreads group over there, Support for Indie Authors, that I've been sort of following. I'm in their group. They're doing an event too, so you might want to look at that. It's Support for Indie Authors. I don't think I put that link in the chat room, but that's another group that has things going on. And these cyber things are great, because you can come and go, and it doesn't cost you anything. You can get your name out there to a lot of people, which is great. So that's why I like it. So that was the CyberCon thing, just to make sure that we all knew about that.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's great. All right, I'm in. Check it out.
I would like to give a little bit of plug for BackPorchWriter right now. Actually, it's more like a plea. Please go over to iTunes and rate and review BackPorchWriter so more people can find the show. Please. Thank you. Appreciate that. I had to put that out there. It's been 3 years. I have one review. I would like more than that, please. Maybe 1,000 between now and next Tuesday. If we get 1,000, that's probably way too much. How about just 5 more?
Yeah, let's get to 10. Let's shoot for 10.
10. We get 10 reviews for BackPorchWriter on iTunes, so more people can find the show.
Well, I am sad to admit that I have not yet listened to a BackPorchWriter. I kind of gave up on podcasts. As you know, I was curmudgeonly frustrated by the various podcasting listening tools that were out there, and I just threw up my hands and said, I'll pox on both your houses, and I walked away.
Why did you do Stitcher? Did you have a problem with Stitcher?
No. You
didn't.
By the time you mentioned Stitcher, I kind of already gave up hope.
That's the
part of it. Part of it is also very, I kind of, the flagship show that I was most enjoying listening to was the Sell More Books show, but it got broken for me. It got broke, and then I kind of gave up on Sell More Books, and now I don't have anything to listen to, so I just gave up.
Why? What was the issue with Sell More Books? If you want to share, you don't have to.
Are we allowed to share? Can I share? I guess
if you want to.
Our show, we can share. Yeah, so, you and I are in Selling for Authors, right? Like the Facebook thing with Brian Cohen. And I honestly felt like, and I know that this was what it was. I know that Selling for Authors was part of a sales tool for his Selling for Authors class. I realized that. But I was super active in that group and super, engaged and very, very interested in it. And I honestly feel like he sort of, I don't know, he set it up, but just either lost interest in it or got busy doing other stuff. And a lot of us were sort of there rolling around in our own filth, well, I think this is a good review. I think that's a bad blurb, whatever. And then it just, everybody kind of wandered away. It just sort of lost its critical mass. For me, certainly, I lost interest in that group. So that was kind of 2 strikes. One, I want to be a good soldier and be a good participant in Brian Cohen's thing because I'm a fan of Brian Cohen. So I kind of walked in the door with enthusiasm. That got wasted. And then 2, feeling like somehow the conversation moved away because I didn't sign up for the Selling for Authors class, kind of migrate into the new Selling for Authors thing. That was strike 2. And strike 3, and this is so petty, and I'm ashamed to even mention it, but Jim Kukral just once in passing kind of mentioned erotica. He just sort of threw out this line about erotica on the Sell More Books show. And it was the kind of line that it was it was clear he wasn't just making a joke about it. It was clear that he knew a lot about the topic. And mind you, I'm not a prude. I don't, turn up my nose at anyone's, taste in reading or whatever. So I'm like, okay, Jim Cuckoo, he likes himself some smut, and that's fine. Who doesn't, right? On occasion, like a little smut in their life. But I don't need that in my Somewhere Book Show. I don't need that in my podcast. And it came up again 2 more times in 2 more episodes. Like the next 2 that I happened to listen to, he kind of went back and was talking about prawn. And after a while, I was just like, you know what? I have the greatest respect for what Jim Cuckoo has managed to accomplish. I have I used to be a huge fan of Somewhere Book Show. I don't want to talk about erotica on Somewhere Book Show. Yes, they're books. Yes, I understand that it is a, thriving, turbulent market. I get it. But you know what? I don't want to talk about that on Somewhere Book Show. I don't know. It was a little bit like, I don't know. It was just like swearing in church or something. It just felt all wrong, and it got weird. And I was just like, I don't want to. It's kind of like, you start thinking about your teacher or your parents as a sexual being. I'm like, I love Brian. I love Jim. Oh, I don't want to think about those guys getting freaky. Like I don't want to know about that. I just want to think of them as these sort of business guys. So anyway, it's just, yeah, exactly. I can't think of it that way. So anyway, totally my own bag. And that's full disclosure, open kimono. I apologize to everyone in the audience who's like, Hardy, get over yourself. So there you go. Okay. That's
So I think you mentioned this. I have been listening to Authority Self-Publishing, that podcast. That's been pretty good. I've been listening to, I listen to a couple of Copy Blogger, but not a lot. Some of the other writing one, Author Biz Show, not the most recent episode, the one before that, I actually listened to it twice because I felt like I listened to it once and I was missing something. So I went back and listened to it again. I love his show because I really like his style. His name's Stephen Campbell, but he's got the Author Biz Show. I have not listened to the Kobo podcast yet, but it's Kobo Writing Life podcast. It's on my list of podcasts I need to check out. But I do still like the Rocking Self-Publishing podcast, the one with the guy with the accent, who I just blanked on his name. Simon Whistler. Simon Whistler? I think that's his name. Anyway, I like his podcast. I still listen to the Creative Pen sometimes. It just depends on our topic. And then Self-Publishing podcast. I like to listen to them sometimes I don't. They just did a summit. I don't know if this is the first time they were doing it. It's the Smarter Artist Summit. They were doing it, I think, in Austin. And it was, I think, just this last week, or it was this weekend, happening this week. I can't remember, but it was something recent that these guys had put together, and a bunch of, indie names were going to be there and all that jazz. Had I been in Austin, I probably would have said, hey, I should go to that. But it wasn't something I was going to fly to.
Ask you a weird question. So what are you looking for out of your podcast? Like what is it that what are you looking for? I mean, how would you describe what you, I don't know, like what you want?
I have, on my phone, because one of the things I can do in Stitcher is I can create playlists. And so I have a playlist that's for a lot of the shows that I just mentioned. So they're about craft, they're about the business of being an author, that sort of thing. And then I have a whole other set playlist that I have that's for marketing and learning about marketing that is not completely related to being an author, because I know I can get marketing ideas that I could use over in my author life. And so I have a whole section of things I listen to that fall under that category. I have another category that's under behavior, because I like to write about body language and things like that. And so I've got, and psychology. And so I've got a section for that. And I only have 3 podcasts under that. And I only listen to 2 of them periodically. One, that person hasn't been producing content. And so that's been the issue. So I was listening to back episodes. So it depends on what it is I'm trying to do, but I have it all segmented. But every week I look to see what has Creative Pen put out, what has Author Biz Show put out, what did I just added Grammar Girl, and I really enjoyed. I listened to one of her podcasts and went, oh, I really like this. It was right around St. Patrick's Day, and it was really good. And it's short. I like some of the shorter podcasts. I generally don't like the ones that are really long, because I can't listen to all of them in one drive time, And that's usually when I'm listening to my podcasts. That's why my podcasts are 30 minutes because I know how I am when I want to consume the content. And so I keep them to, 30 minutes or less is what my podcasts are. Mm-hmm. So like Creative Pen is like an hour or longer, and I usually fast forward through all of her intro stuff so I can get just to the interview section of it. But that's how I do it. And even with the selling for books or selling for whatever their thing is, Brian Cohen and Kukral, their show. Yeah, mm-hmm. Some more books. I usually fast forward through the first part, and then I like to listen to the tips that they have, that they research. And it's funny because I'm starting to get to the point where I read enough indie stuff that I know some of this stuff already. So that's kind of cool that I'm like, oh, I already knew about that. But I do like to hear that. I like to hear that. And every now and then they'll have an interview, So I'm looking for information that's directly related to either being an author, but not so much craft. I have books for that. I have plenty of books that teach me that. So it's about the business of being an author, and then things having to do with marketing, and then things having to do with psychology, because I write about that.
It's interesting because for me, for what it's worth, like what I liked about Somewhere Bookshelf was the feeling that Jim is an established nonfiction author with a whole slew of books to his name, but his books are very much designed to promote his speaking gigs, his kind of consulting and speaking gigs, and also to promote his member website. Mm-hmm. And then Brian was trying to climb the mountain of being a fiction writer, and my impression with Brian, and Brian has nonfiction stuff too, but it's writing prompts and things like that. Anyway, but he's trying to climb the mountain of, selling his TED books and whatever, climb that mountain. And what I really enjoyed about Somewhere Bookshelf was that feeling of, oh, here's at least here's one guy who's ahead of me, Jim, who's kind of further along in his career. And here's Brian, who's a little bit ahead of me and scrambling his way up the mountain. And actually, I mean, just in terms of the number of books that he has out there, far ahead of me, but still, I still can identify with that person. I can relate to, kind of where he is in terms of his struggle and trying to climb the mountain of, becoming an indie author. But now Brian is kind of cresting the hill. He's got a lot of books out there. His books are starting to generate a lot of momentum on their own. And he's got a success with his class. And my problem with stuff like Jim Kukral's Authorpreneur broadcast, or some of those other ones, Creative Pen, I think probably, I've never listened to it, but I suspect it would fall into the same camp for me. There's nothing there I could relate to. It's like, this guy makes $1.5 million every month selling 60 hojillion books. I'm like, well, that's cool, but you know what? I don't need to hear that person take a victory lap, and I don't need to. There's nothing there that's going to help me. Like, okay, you can make it 10 more yards. Just keep scribing. Keep scrabbling, and that's kind of what I am looking for out of my podcast. Is not even necessarily the practical advice, more just sort of a, yeah, man, we're all struggling to try to get there. We're all trying to climb that hill, and you got a little bit higher, good for you. And I'm backsliding. Mm-hmm. My washer and dryer sprung a leak, and now I'm behind, or whatever. Anyway, that kind of thing. Right. I like that a lot. And anyway, whatever. That's
BackPorchWriter then. You should be listening to my podcast.
Okay, I will.
The people that come on the show, I mean, I did change the format recently. It used to be people would come on and I would talk with them for almost the entire time. I'd do a 5 or 7 minute intro thing, and it was really personal. And hey, the weather's like this right now in my neck of the woods. I took that out recently. Now it's people, I do a short intro, and I tell what the topics are going to be, and the author comes on, or whoever the guest is comes on. We talk for about 15 minutes, and then they're out, and then I go on with the other things that need to happen. Whether, like today I was talking about KDROI, KDPulse. I was talking about book blurbs very briefly because I was running out of time. And I was talking about one other thing that I've now blanked on. Oh, and I do book love. Book review love is a new segment for my show. So I tell people, just send me your information a week before the show about your book that you are putting out, or you have put out, or a new edition or whatever. I'll go check it out on Amazon. If it looks like you need reviews, then I'll say that on the show. Go check out such and such book. Here's a little bit about them, and they need some book review love. Everybody needs a little bit of book review love. So I do that. But the people that come on the show, the authors that come on, I'm usually asking them things like, hey, what marketing have you done? and what's working for you and what's not working for you. What do you think of this? It's that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So they tell about their books, but then we talk about what it's like to be a working author or someone who's trying to get the word out. And I've had some interesting people on the show that were more of, named, like Joel Friedlander was on my show a year or so ago, and he's the book designer. I had one of my favorite guests was Gerald Schnitzer. He's been on my show 2 or 3 times now, and he's a guy out of Hollywood. He's a producer. He's a writer. He's done all kinds of stuff. And the guy's in his 90s. He was one of my favorite guests because he's so down to earth. He worked with Bela Lugosi, the guy that played the vampire.
Oh, sure.
He worked with him. He worked with some amazing people, and I was like, oh, I love this man. So he's been on the show a couple times, and I've had some other really cool people on the show. Everybody's wonderful. I mean, I will say that I love him and different guests, but I actually don't go for, I want this big name person on the show. I did for a while. I kind of wanted that. I don't care. Ultimately that doesn't matter to me because that's not what the show is about. The show is for writers, about writers, and writing. You fit that category, you could be on the BackPorchWriter show because it's down to earth like that. And I think sometimes some of the people that are bigger name people, they expect that if they're going to come on the show, it's going to be me doing this great intro about them. And I'm like, no, that's your job. You should be pretty schooled at that by now. So tell everybody about yourself so that I don't have to.
Sure.
Because you still have to sell yourself to the audience. I mean, they may not know you from Boo, Sure. I know who Joel Friedlander is, but that doesn't mean everybody else knows who he is. So I think sometimes that goes on. But yeah, it's a down-to-earth sort of show. It really is. I've had marketing experts on it, PR experts on it, all kinds of things like that, because it's just about how do you become a writer? How do you become an author? How do you do this business thing?
Speaking of how we do the business, what is next up on what do you want to cover? Since you like nice, condensed, time-tight content, and we're coming up with that.
Well, we've covered some things that I didn't realize we were going to get into today, and that's been good. This has been a really a good thing. The thing that's been on my mind lately is I've been listening to an audiobook called Mindset by a Dr. Carol Dweck. Have you heard of it? Mm-hmm. The book? It's a great book. I mean, I'm listening to the audiobook, and it's great. I'm actually almost finished with the audiobook. I realized that today. So I did a segment on that for the Womanly Art podcast yesterday, and I talked a little bit about that on my Indies BackPorchWriter on Goodreads and all that. But the mindset concept is really interesting because it talks about whether you have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. And it can be, you don't have to be either or. It could be that you have a mixture of that depending on what area of your life you're talking about. So, for example, I might have a fixed mindset when it comes to doing math because I really am not fond of math, not my favorite subject on the planet. And I used to say all the time, I can't do math. And then a couple of years ago, I started to say, well, no, that's not true. I can do things that are related to money. I can do money math, and I can do things on pencil, paper, and figure things out. I can't really visualize things in my head, but I can write it down and figure it out. So my language started to change. So I went from a very fixed mindset with math to a very growth mindset. Well, not very, I shouldn't say very, but to more of a growth mindset toward math. So then I was thinking about authors and all the authors that I've encountered. And it seems like some of them have a very fixed mindset when they're approaching this author career, and some have more of a growth-oriented mindset. And the ones that have a growth-oriented mindset are the ones that, one, I want to be around, and two, are the ones that are becoming more successful. The fixed ones just aren't.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I observe.
That's definitely true. Do you? Yeah. No, it's true. No, I just. Sorry, you sent me kind of cascading along this weird path in my mind. This week, speaking of growth mindsets and fixed mindsets and stuff like that, an author and small press publisher friend of mine, from whom I actually took a self-publishing class 2 years ago, asked a bunch of authors that she knows, self-published, indie authors that she knows, to get together to kind of participate in a marketing group. And we're going to meet once a month at a little coffee shop and talk about our marketing efforts and what we're working on and where we hope to go with stuff and things like that. And I sat down with these people, and I realized that, over the past, X years, I've built a lot of knowledge, in a lot of different places about what the kind of indie author business looks like, what the tools, you're talking about the tools that are in your tool bags, the things that you can do, the techniques. I just realized, is there a single resource out there? Is there a, hey, want to be an indie author? Do the following things kind of step-by-step resource? Because wouldn't it be handy if there was?
There's a few that I think authors have attempted to do. Like the one I mentioned a couple weeks ago was something along those lines, but it was more towards nonfiction authors. And it was from the Authority Self-Publishing podcast. It was from those people. I think Creative Pen, I think Joanna Penn, she has a book that's similar to that sort of thing. These are the steps that you would take, or these are potentially the steps that you would take if you want to go down the path of being an author. So that information is out there. The Independent Authors Association, AIA, anyway, they had a book that they put out that was several indie authors contributing to the book, and all these different topics that you cover. It's a little bit older now because I got that a couple of years back. So some of it might actually not be relevant anymore. But yeah, there are some things like that. So it's just a matter of, finding them. But I would check. Joanna Penn, I know, has stuff like that.
Well, it's not. I'm not looking for it. I'm just I don't know.
It's like that it's the new indie author comes onto the scene and says, I don't know what to do. I have no clue where to look. I have no idea. Right.
Right. Yeah,
they wouldn't know to look for Joanna Penn. They wouldn't know to look for anybody that you and I at this point do know. But then how did we find them? We found them because we just started doing some of the research and their names just started to pop up. So, I mean, that's kind of.
Absolutely. But then you have to sample that content, assess whether or not it works for you. Mm-hmm. You have to continue, go out and search. You have to compare and contrast. Oh, well, this person recommends X. That person recommends Y. Can you get some corroboration on those data points from other sources that you trust? I mean, it's kind of, I don't know. I'm not saying it's too complex. Obviously, people do it every day. But I don't know. It is interesting. There isn't a indie author start here thing I've ever seen. Literally like start here, do these things. Or here's some stuff you need to know. Like this is how. I actually had a long debate with a woman at this marketing group who's just completely adamantly against the idea of giving books away. Just she's like, why would I ever give my books away? I don't understand why I would ever do that. And if you give your books away, you can build a mailing list and it becomes a content marketing tool and blah, blah, blah. She's like, no, I don't believe in that. I don't think that works. And I mean, I'm kind of like, I don't know what to say.
You nod, you smile and go, oh, okay. And then you walk away realizing they have a fixed mindset. There's nothing you can do.
Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe that's the answer. Maybe that is exactly the answer. I don't know. It's just a funny thing. It's kind of like, I wish there was a little handy guide that could, kind of.
Actually, Ally that I belong to does have guides that are like that. I haven't looked at them because I didn't need them, so I wasn't looking at them. But they have guides like that on the Ally. Anyway, on their website, Alliance of Independent Authors, and it's a good website. And the people in there, I'm in their forum on Facebook, and there's some great authors that come in and out of that one. And to just ask questions and share information. And, I ignore the ones that seem to be just dribble, but the ones who actually are asking questions and then people come in and answer them, that's what I'm usually paying attention to when I look at that forum, not anything else. But yeah, I mean, it would be nice. I mean, I have a lot of people ask me questions now. It's really interesting. I went to a birthday party, just stopped in on the birthday party on Saturday, I think. I don't know. Anyway, for my kid. And we've stayed for a little bit, and the mother started asking me. She knew that I'm a writer, and I told her this several years ago. And then she came to me asking me questions, and I just started to explain a little bit about it. And it's when you have more questions, just come back. And I think that's part of it is being willing to answer questions for people if you have to know. And I tell them if I don't have a good answer, if I don't know an answer, I'll find it for you because I at least know where to look. I know where to go, and it'd be harder for them because they actually don't know where to start. And I have a good base of where to start. And so I can find the information. But that comes up quite a bit. I had somebody from the Philippines that wanted to do that and sent me emails. I'm like, well, I can tell you what I know. I mean, that's about what I can do for you and give you suggestions. But when it comes to people that generally have a fixed mindset orientation as a general rule, you just recognize it for what it is. And then you're going to have to wait until they're ready. I've met lots of people like that over the years. And I would sit there and I would talk with them. And then I just finally say, oh, I get it. And they'd be like, what? I said, you're not ready yet. Let me know when you are. And then I just move on because you're not ready. There's no point in talking about it because they're not ready. And that's okay. They're not at the same point all the time. That's one of the reasons why if I got involved in a group, like you're talking about this marketing group, if I got involved in a group, I would want to know that all of us are on the same page, moving in the same direction. I don't want to get into a group where half of them have this mindset like this woman, oh, I shouldn't do that. I can't do that. It doesn't make any sense. I'm not there to convince you. I'm there to say, I'm here to sell books because I want to be an author that makes money off my books. And if that's not what you're into, then perhaps you're in the wrong group. I want to be in the same mindset with everybody, because then you're brainstorming ideas around how to sell your books, how to promote your stuff.
Oh, I completely agree. It's just that I think in her case, it's just literally she doesn't know what content marketing is as a concept. She's never heard of content marketing, and to understand why you would want to give books away and how they benefit your brand and your platform and as an entry point, for continuing contact for direct sales, she doesn't know any of that stuff. All she knows is I wrote a book, I published a book, and I don't understand why you want me to give this book away because it took me a lot of work to make it. And
here's the thing, though. She does know what content marketing is, and all of us do. And the reason that we do is because every time we go into a grocery store and they want to give us a free sample of something, that's content marketing. Every time we go anywhere else and somebody's giving us stuff, that's content marketing. They're trying to get us to buy their stuff, and they're doing it on a regular basis. Every time they give you a coupon, what are they doing? So she does know what it is. I think oftentimes with authors, we get our heads wrapped around, but I work so damn hard on this, I don't want to give it away for free. Well, get over yourself. If you want to make anything from it, you're going to have to do this and then keep producing. You can't write one book and think that that's going to be the end all be all for you, especially if you're a fiction writer. Nonfiction, it just depends on what your platform is going to be, because if you're writing the book so that you can be a speaker, that's a different scenario. You're using it to launch a speaking gig. That's a whole different game, and it is a game. It's a totally different game. But if you're talking about, I want to make a living writing, being an author, no, you have to do all these other things, and you see it every day. Every company that I can think of does this to some degree.
Oh,
every single company.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with you.
She knows.
Well, I'm sure. Okay.
Go talk to her.
I guess. Yeah. No, I mean, I guess it would be handy. What I'm thinking about is, and again, I don't want to write this book. I don't know enough about it to even bother. Like I'm trying to do it for myself. Trying to write a book like this to help other people do it just doesn't make a lot of sense. However, it would be kind of handy to have a book that essentially said, like I said, indie author, start here. Let me explain to you, where you're going to make money, where you're going to do, what the value of building a platform is, how social marketing is going to plug into that, how content marketing works and why it's going to work for you. I mean, just that kind of like how networking is going to work for you. Those types of things. And then you could point to examples and say, okay, well, here is a person who followed a path to success through Facebook advertising. Here's a person who followed a path to success through, regular podcasting and networking. Here's, what I'm saying? Like there would be a little handy guide, or it might even be a big handy guide, but some kind of thing that just says, just start here. Like, look, we all want to do it. This is going to help you get a leg up on some of the fundamental stuff so that you don't necessarily have to spend, the better part of 2 years tracking down every single, whatever. I don't care. I mean, I'm just looking back. Maybe
what it needs to be, because between the two of us, we know resources like that exist. So maybe what it needs to be is just gather the titles of those resources and put them in a list and say, here you go. And then when you meet people, you could just point them to that list and say, you need to read these books right here. Yeah. I mean, that write, publish, repeat, that does that. Like I said, Joanna Penn's book does that. The guides from Allied does that. So it's more of having a place where all of that information is in one spot, and you just go, okay, I'm going to read this, 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 and this. I mean, that's essentially how
actually that's a fantastic. We could do that. We could compile the Indie Author Hour, beginner's resource list, and literally put them in order. It's like, all right, here's the topic. Here are the resources that you're going to read, and you need to read them in this order. I mean, that would be pretty easy to put together. All right, I'm on it. I will put that together.
Okay, you do that.
Well, no, and then what we can do is it could be a lead magnet for the Indie Author Hour. I mean, it could be, anyway.
There you go.
Right.
But see, you'd be in charge of that because you've got that stuff figured out better than I do. So you would have to be the lead person on that. I mean, I can't even manage to get all the show notes done because it's too much work to get the show notes done. And it's true. It just is. You know what it is if, and I don't know if I mentioned this before, on Libsyn, Womanly Art of Self-Defense is on Libsyn. So when I go to upload my audio to Libsyn, I can create all my show notes right there. And then it links to the my WordPress site for the Womanly Art Show. So I'm not spending a lot of effort in trying to do 2 or 3 things with these show notes. It's just, boom, pretty much done, And when it goes over to the WordPress site, I have it set to draft. So it doesn't just go automatically and publish. That way I can go in and check it and make sure that I have everything in there. And then I'm done. I can't do that with BackPorchWriter, which is why I get behind in show notes for BackPorchWriter. I can't do it for this show. So I get behind in show notes for this show. Because if it were that connected, I'd be like, oop, done, easy, piece of cake, But that's what's going on is it needs to be an easily connected tool. And we said we were going to talk about having a website. We still haven't done that. We need to talk about that at some point.
Okay.
A website for Indie Author. And I need a new show image for Indie Author Hour. That's
I know. I'm sorry. I've been working on class graphics, so I will produce
right. I made a temporary one.
I saw it.
So you saw what I did. I made a temporary one.
I did see that. Yes, I did.
But it looks better than what it was before because it was getting cut off. At least now it's not getting cut off.
Yeah, exactly. If something's better than nothing, that's always true.
That's what I was kind of looking at.
Definitely true.
Better than nothing. But I think the resource idea, I think that's a cool idea. And it would be perfect on a website. If we have the actual website up and running, it'd be perfect on that. And then, it'd be a nice go-to source, for everybody. Be useful. And I've come across a lot of really useful stuff over the years, actually.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm sure between the two.
We could even have a list of, here's some podcasts you should listen to and list the actual episodes. Listen to this episode, this episode, this episode.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because this was really useful. So that'd be cool too. So that's my 2 cents on it. So let me know. I'm only doing revisions and getting a book out pretty soon. So I'm not that busy.
Atta girl.
No big deal.
Hey, talking about Amazon sales, can I just share something that's very interesting? Remember at the beginning of the show you started talking about Amazon sales? Guess what? I sold some books. I did. I took everything out of Kindle Select and I put it over to, I just let it
you let it just run its course on Kindle Select?
Yeah, and I pulled them out of Kindle Select, out of KDPSelect, and now they're starting to sell. Like I'm actually starting to sell some books. Yeah, I'm looking at my Amazon.com royalties, and I made like $15.
That's good.
That's crazy.
That's good.
What?
Did you? Wait a minute. When it was in KDP, did you make any sales?
Not a dime. Virtually nothing. Because remember, my books are short. They're not novels.
Yeah, I know. But people talk about authors talking about going into KDP. I tried it with a couple different books, and nothing ever happened. It never worked out well. And part of that could have been inexperience on my part at the time too. So it's not just because it was KDP. But even recently, it seems like I'm not hearing many authors do very well with their books in KDP. So,
yeah, I know they played around with the algorithms and did some stuff to it. I don't know, and there were some changes there, but yeah, I'm looking at I don't know. It surprised me because you mentioned that, and I just out of a curiosity, I decided to pull up my reports page on Amazon, and I'm looking at the royalties, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, that's more than zero. What is that all about?
It was like my reaction when I had that international sale. I was like, oh my God.
I know.
I expected it to be zero when I looked at it.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I when it came out of the free stuff, oops, are we getting some weird sound?
I kicked him out. Somebody was trying to come in, but there was so much feedback and noise that I booted him back out. So the person who's trying to call in, you can call in, but there's a lot of noise in the background there, and
we're not letting in anybody who has an egg on their profile. Sorry. If that's the best you got is an egg on your profile, go back to Twitter, put a face on it, write a headline, then you can come. And you can
okay. I was going to let you in. Hardy said no. So you're going to have to go do that.
Got to put a face on it. Sorry.
There are some rules at Indie Author Hour.
That's one of them. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's that thing. Literally in some of the Twitter management things, it basically like you can kick people out who have eggs. All they have is an egg on their profile, and I'm like, yeah, you gotta put a face on there, buddy.
Do a little more effort.
Yeah. Come on.
So,
all right.
Okay, so that's congratulations. That's awesome. That's moving in the right direction.
Just thinking. I mean, it's interesting. I let the timer run out on KDP on those books because it wasn't doing a thing for me. My rankings actually fell in terms of where my books were ranked relative to the categories that they were in when they went into KDP, because I was giving the one away for free, and I had the other ones for sale, and the one that was away for free was 1 or 2 in its category all the time. And then I thought, maybe it'll get a little bit bigger attention, and maybe I'd squeeze a few more reviews out of it if I put it into KDP. Well, it just went plummeting down the list. But interestingly enough, for whatever it's worth, and I'm not bragging, I'm just sharing. That's all I'm trying to do here. What's interesting is that I look back at the beginner's guide, the first one in the series, and it's come out of the way down where it was. It's up to number 98 in higher continuing education. And that's charging $1 for it, which I think is where that's got to be where the money's coming from, right? Like it's slowly climbing its way up the ranks.
Yeah.
And if people's going to pay $1 for that book, that'd be great. And that's an entree, and it's a great entry into my funnel too. People, who buy the book, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, interesting.
That's cool.
It's all a mystery.
Yes, it is. So for everybody who's wondering, even when we put together some resource list and guide and do all this stuff, there's still a lot of mystery to what happens. So be patient. Be very, very patient. It's like me starting out saying why DS1 got all these downloads, but that's not what I was promoting the last several days. But that's what got the hit. So okay, that's what got the hit. I'll take it.
Yeah.
But
well, it could be
weird things.
I think Publish also has an impact on that too. I don't know if you've got anything over there on Publish, but I swear at one point I got a big bump in the number of people that were downloading, my books. And I think it was because of one of those Publish floating bookstore promotions. I'm not sure about that, but it's the only thing that I happened to see an email go by Publish at one point. We're like, oh, congratulations, you made it to the floating bookstore. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And then I got a big bunch of downloads. I think the two were correlated, but that's one of the tricks for our indie pals out there that are listening, if anyone cares. One of the things is you want to be able to not to make it mystery. It shouldn't be magic. Right. There should be a cause and effect relationship between your marketing and the results that you see. But the part that is mysterious is continuing to explore all these different avenues and finding stuff that will get traction for you, whatever that is. If it's promotions on Publish, if it's Twitter direct advertising, if it's Pinterest advertising anyway. I had some success advertising on Facebook for, to build my mailing list, but not for sales. I never really tried to go direct sales, but that's the next frontier. Sales.
Did you fix your funnel since you brought that up?
No, I just shut it off. I just shut everything off. But I just checked ever since, as we were talking about this stuff in the background, I just checked. Even my mailing list went up a little bit, and it's got to be because some people bought the books and went through the funnel that way. Because there's there's links in the books that'll bring people into the funnel. So, no, I did not fix the Facebook advertising. My thought was that I was going to suspend Facebook advertising for that funnel and turn the Facebook advertising on when I start promoting the class. So I'm going to build a funnel for the class because I wasn't.
That makes sense.
So now the books are going to, I don't know, maybe by shutting off the spend, this will give me an opportunity to see a little bit more clearly exactly what can the books do on their own. I have no idea. About to find out. I sort of was hoping that they would, that my Facebook spend would cause them to balloon on Amazon, but maybe that's not the answer. I don't know. Who knows? We'll see.
We'll see. That's part of the mystery of the process. Right there.
Two things
but it's fun.
Two marketing things I want to try. Well, I love this idea of your Brain to Books, what is it? What are you calling it?
It's a CyberCon.
CyberCon. Yeah, write that word down. That's a good word. CyberCon.
They're either calling it CyberCon or CyCon. I've seen them use both.
That's great.
Terms for people.
I love the idea of a CyberCon. Definitely want to see if there's a way for me to get involved in that. I think that's really cool. The other thing that I want to try to do is I want to try to submit to some contests. That's something I wanted to try to do next.
What kind of contest?
I don't know. Contests for books. There's ones where they're like, best nonfiction or best new.
Well, there's the IPPY, the independent something or other, but it's IPPY, IPPY.
IPPY, okay. I don't know. That just seemed like something to try. Trying something different.
Yeah. When you do IPPY, I don't know if all of them are like this, but I know that one. There's a submission fee when you do it, and there's a bunch of different categories and things. So that's one. But if you look that one up, you'll be able to find some other ones because that one's a big one. So just Google that one, and then others will pop up, and you can see what you might want to do. Because I know authors who have done it, and they've been successful with it, and they can get the little sticker and put the sticker on their books, and that does help sell the book.
Also, I got one response on Choosy Bookworm. I got one reader.
Choosy Bookworm.
Remember the promotions thing, the book reviews thing you mentioned?
That was favorite reader's favorite.
Reader's favorite. Yeah, that's the one. Right. Reader's favorite. Yeah. I don't know why I called it Choosy Bookworm. I like that better.
But that's a whole other thing.
Oh, is it a different thing?
Yeah, that is a different thing.
My bad.
That's why I was like, Choosy Bookworm. Wait a minute. So reader's favorite, what do you mean? Somebody is reading your book and reviewing it?
They will. I have to reach out to them via email, but they sent me saying, congratulations, someone has picked you. So that's interesting.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. Although
I never got that email. That's really weird. I never got that. They never told me the person was going to review it.
That's why it continues to be mysterious, doesn't it? All these different avenues. Yeah, so I'm going to I got to reach out to that person by email. I'm glad I actually remembered because I need to write back and say, hey, welcome. Glad you're interested. Let me send you the Ultimate Edition.
So you're going to send them the physical book?
No, but I'll send them the e-book version of the Ultimate Edition. I'll give them the whole shebang. That way they don't have to, just go piecemeal one at a time. Because after all,
that'll be better because they are short and it gives them the big picture of it.
Yeah.
I think you'll end up in a better position that way.
Plus there's some expanded content in the Ultimate Edition. I wrote some more stories. True stories. They actually happened. I didn't invent them, but what I mean is, all the examples in the books are stuff that I lived through. I mean, they're all, the names have been changed to protect the somewhat innocent. Not that any of the people involved in them are super innocent, but in any case, they're all experiences that I had, real anecdotes from my own career or from, those of my pals and nemesis and game development. So anyway, and there's...
You have nemesis in game development?
I absolutely do. Yes. There are some people that loathe me and I loathe them, and make no bones about it. Yeah. Absolutely.
Pretty competitive environment then?
Yeah. Well, it's super competitive, and there is as you might imagine, when it comes to something that is intensely creative, technically demanding, and the stakes are high, there's just a clash of incredibly powerful, overwhelmingly powerful egos. Just unbelievable. Just nuts. And I mean, it's a blood sport. And unfortunately, people come away scarred by it. Yours truly, yours and myself included.
Wow.
Yeah, it's that's one of the. I mean, I try to say it as nicely as I can in the books. Like, hey, making games is not like playing games. Playing games is fun. Making games is horrible. No, it's not horrible. No. Keep buying my books, people. Buy my books. Read the series. If you love games, you can make them too. But understand that when there's $25 million project on the line, and you have to make a choice between having a family or shipping a $25 million product. All of the social forces are aligned behind you shipping the product. They are not at all sympathetic to your life in any capacity. They would rather see you sleep at your desk, eat your food at your desk, and ship the product on time. And absolutely, you should spend some time with your kids and eat a home cooked meal and sleep in your own bed. That is not a sympathy that the game industry has towards the various scions that are out there sitting in those cubicles making games happen every day. If you're working on a AAA product, oh my gosh, I could tell you. I will tell you a story. We were working on a game, trying to get it done, trying to hit deadline. And it was 2:00 in the morning because we've been working straight through. It was 2 a.m. And it was time for me to go home. I was like, I can't take it anymore. I've been here, since 10 o'clock in the morning. I've been working, straight through till 2 a.m. And I got to go home. I typically gave my pal Chris a ride home so that he can make it back to his apartment. But this particular night, he wasn't ready to leave. He needed to stick around for at least another hour. And I really wanted to go home and get some sleep. So I went home, and Chris decided that he was going to walk to his apartment. Now, his apartment was on the other side of the high school football fields from where our office was. It was just a walk laterally, across the football field, not longitudinally, but laterally across the football field. Just said, walk out of our office park, across the parking lot, across the football field. There's his condo. He only got about halfway, and this is about 3:30 a.m. He got about halfway, and he was so tired and so spent, he just wanted to sit down and just catch his breath for a couple minutes before he completed the walk to his condo. The next morning, the high school football team came out and surrounded him because they thought he was a meth addict who had collapsed and died in the middle of the football field. And they were prepared to tackle him and call the cops. He's like, no, I'm a programmer. Please don't hurt me. I'm just trying to get home.
Just a programmer.
Yeah, I'm just a programmer. I'm not a meth addict, although the two have a lot of similarities. Anyway, and that story in a nutshell is what crunch time is like in the video game business. The game doesn't care that you haven't slept. It doesn't care that you only live that far away, but you don't have the strength or energy to make it home. When it's crunch time and you're trying to hit a deadline for, a multi-million-dollar project, it's ruthless. It's just ruthless. And if you're not prepared to make sacrifices to live that life, you're not going to be successful. I mean, it's just the facts. Like, you're not going to be successful in that industry. And people don't understand that. And that's part of why I wrote these dumb books in the first place. I'm sorry, I'm just being self-deprecating there, but is because so many young, fresh-faced kids walk in the door and they're like, I love video games. Mm-hmm. Video games are cool. And I'm like, yeah, video games are cool. This job will kill you if you don't understand that it is going to take a lot out of you and you need to be prepared to deal with that. Anyway, I don't mean to sound bitter. I'm sorry. I don't mean to sound like you can't do the job.
But see, this is one more reason why I suggested that you do the talks at schools and things and participate in career days and things like that for schools, because I think kids do need to know that, because we have so many kids, mine included, who are totally into all this gaming stuff. Mm-hmm. And think, it'd be so cool to make a game and do it. Yeah, it'd be cool. They need to know the reality of it. It's not like they get to shadow people for this kind of work. That's not something they can do. So you going out and doing career days and talks at schools is a really good idea and a really good fit, I think.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah. And I want to spare people that pain. You know, had I known, you know, if I had known more about it before I got into the business, I probably would have approached the business differently. I would have, you know, approached it from a different perspective. I would have, you know, tightened up my technical training. I would have tightened up just a bunch of different things. I would try to approach it in a different way. And that's my main goal, is to just help people avoid that kind of, whoa, I had no idea that this was what it's like. And the washout rate in games is incredibly high. The average career in game development is less than 5 years long, because so many people walk in the door and go, video games are great. I love video games. And then the industry squashes them like a bug. And the sad thing is that there's always another fresh-faced kid who's getting off the bus ready to sit down and do the work, you know? And so if you're starting at the bottom and you can't take the pressure, or you're not well prepared or whatever, then the business will squash you down, spit you out, and then they'll grab somebody else and throw them in the meat grinder. And it's just not fair to young talent. I mean, it's just so damaging to young talent. I just, having been a manager, having been an educator, I can't stand seeing that. I hate that. I just, you know, it's awful. And you can only do so much to mitigate that kind of cost, even as a manager. You know, as a manager, I could say, look, you need to get some dinner. You need to go home. You need to get out of here. You know, you need to try to manage your work-life balance. But also, as a manager of a, you know, multi-million-dollar project, I also have responsibilities to hit the deadlines that I'm trying to get done. You know, I have to manage upwards as well as manage downwards. And, you know, I can't always, it's not in the project's best interest, or even in my best interest professionally, to say to some young person, you need to go home and get some sleep. You need to take a break. You've been here, you know, 14 hours, and it's really time for you to go home. Because if that person, you know, anyway, blah, 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 whatever. Crunch time. That's what's called in the video games industry. Crunch time is it's a reality. It's just because projects are, and it's grueling. But okay, I'm sorry. I don't mean to sound maudlin or self-pitying. I'm not. It's just, I'm done. I'm not talking
real.
What's that?
Being real. And that's all right.
Real.
Like I said, I'm looking forward to hearing about when you do some author visits and things like that, and career days and stuff, because I think it'll be a good thing for a lot of kids to get exposed to that.
I think so too. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I love that idea. And it's funny you should say that, because on my way to this marketing brunch that I went to with these other writers in Seattle, happened to walk by a bookstore that it's called Kim's Technical Books. It's a cafe, and it's got a bunch of books about programming and technology and all the rest of that type of stuff. So I need to put that little packet together and drop it off and say, hi, Kim, you know, or Kim's Books. I'm Hardy, I'm a game developer, and I wrote this book about, you know, getting a game, whatever, see if they might be interested in carrying it there, because it's a small local, you know, independent bookstore. So, oh my
remember
gosh.
when you put, and we're going to wrap this up, but remember when you put together all your packet of information and your stuff, remember to include that you could do Skype sessions with schools and things, because you can do that less expensively. So, and that makes it less expensive for them. So it might encourage them to want you to be one of their authors, because they know it won't cost them as much, because they have budgets, you know.
Yeah,
so include a thing of, you know, I could do a Skype session for 30 minutes or an hour, and this is what it would cost.
Okay.
The Skype side isn't going to cost you anything. It's your time. So they're just paying you essentially for your time.
Sure.
At that point.
Yeah.
So
okay.
keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I love that idea.
You know.
Well, I'm sorry. I dragged us way out. Our Indie Author Hour has become an hour and a half because I had to rant about stuff
That's
today.
Okay. People can fast forward on YouTube. It's all right.
It's true. Yeah, you can scrub, can't you? You can scrub the time list. There he goes again. He's blabbing about social media. He's gone nuts. Somebody shut him up.
But we should get going, and you have a great week. I'm going to eventually get to my revisions for North Downey. I've got to get that done. That book's got to come out. Cover's done, so I got to get going on it.
I just lost you there. I lost that whole comment. Say that again. You have a great week.
I said it. You have a great week, and I was saying that I've got to do my revisions for North Downey because the book's supposed to come out April 4th. I've got to get that done. The cover's done and everything. So
fantastic! I can't wait to see the cover.
Yeah, I like the cover. It turned out the way that I wanted it to, so I'm pleased about that.
Awesome.
I'm like, yeah, it's not as scary as Hush. there you go.
There you go.
So everybody have a great week. Get a lot done, and remember to check your mindset. Do you have a fixed mindset or growth mindset when it comes to being an author? So check yourself on that. Have a great week, Hardy.
You too. Thanks, Kori. Good luck, everybody.
See ya.